The 2026 NFL Combine is upon us, and we are here to talk about the biggest prospects and what to watch when drills and testing start later this week on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Fantasy Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcasting network. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today, we are going to talk about the top prospects that will be participating at the NFL Combine. The Combine's all this week. Testing doesn't start till Thursday, and then really all the fantasy relevant players, we're going to be having to wait till Saturday. But February 28th, Saturday from 1 to 8, we'll get to see the quarterbacks, wide receivers, and running backs all work out, do their drills, do their testing. That will be a fun day. Tight ends you will be able to see on Friday evening, and that's all on NFL Network. But let's talk through some things that we will be paying close attention to. Jeremiyah Love. So he will be participating in drills at the Combine. We don't know exactly if he'll be running the 40 or anything like that, but what do you need to see from him to make it be like, yeah, he's definitely locked in top 10 pick, or do you think he's already there?
Yeah, a couple things. I will be doing some more draft evaluation there at Sporting News, so we'll have a mock draft and a new big board for you as we go into the Combine. So I've taken a look at a lot of these prospects pretty closely, still getting the back end of guys to look at, but Jeremiyah Love is not a back end guy. He's a surefire first-round pick, surefire top 10 pick. I'll go even that far to say, and I've seen a lot of them because I watched a lot of Notre Dame. And he just takes over games. Every time they give him the ball, there's like good things happen. Whether he explodes for a long run and takes it the distance, changing the game, or scores touchdowns to finish drives, or has ability at times when he called upon to catch passes and have an impact in the pass game. They just didn't need to do as much there at Notre Dame because he ran over a lot of people in just chunk runs and big plays. So he's that type of runner. He's a home run hitter there with that ability to also get down and dirty, get those tough yards between the tackles when you need it. So to me, I don't need to see a lot. The biggest thing I want to see is don't get hurt. Don't come up lame in any of these drills. The 40, I'm interested in the 40 just to see how good his breakaway speed is. I think it's fantastic already, at least on the field. Like he can pull away from defenders, and if he sees a little bit of daylight, he can go to distance. So, again, I'm excited about Jeremiyah Love. I think this running back class is much like the quarterback class. You have one really good dude and a bunch of other people trying to position themselves as the next slew of people that could have some impact here. But I look at Jeremiyah Love, again, he's a complete package. He can also hold up. He's been a workhorse for Notre Dame. He's had a few guys relieve him, but overall he can handle the workload. So you're looking at the Chiefs, you're looking at the Cardinals, Commanders, so many of these teams in the first round, that top first round, in the top 10, need a workhorse back. They need to clean up these committees. So wherever he goes, it's going to be a little bit more like Bijan Robinson than more like Jahmyr Gibbs, right? Where he's not going to be used in tandem with somebody and brought along slowly. He will get a big workload right away. So I'm excited about all those destinations. Really, it doesn't matter. Jeremiyah Love is going to be that guy we're going to look at as a borderline top 12 running back here in fantasy in 2026.
Yeah, and a lot of mock drafts have him going to the Chiefs. That, of course, would be exciting, right? But I actually think the Commanders would be the best landing spot for him in fantasy. I think he and Jaden, and it would help out Jaden Daniels as well. I think that backfield would be electric with those two. So that's my hope for him. Now, another running back I'm going to be paying close attention to this weekend is Jadarian Price, who was Jeremiyah Love's backup at Notre Dame. And of course, he got overshadowed there because Jeremiyah Love is the best running back in college football, right? So Price had to split work and didn't get as much workload that he may have got elsewhere, but he was also highly efficient, another good running back. He could be the second running back off the board. I mean, like you said, after Love, it's kind of all over the place with rankings here, but Price is in a lot of people's, RB2 or RB3 in this class. Do you think he's a second round pick, or do you think there's that big of a gap between Love and the next guy that it could even be later than a second round pick?
Yeah, I think the door is a little bit wide open for who's the second running back on the board, but usually you'll see a flurry in the mid second to mid third round of running backs going because everyone's like, okay, we need to address it, but it's still something important. We're going to go after it. And then when you line up teams like that, I think it would be a good fit for Houston, Denver, where, look, they're not going to be aggressive as playoff teams to say this is the most important need. We're not going to go and trade up for Jordyn or Jeremiyah Love here in the first round. So they're going to look for these values and guy that can fit in their systems. And I think Jadarian Price, the way he runs, is actually pretty good for that system that those teams run. It's Sean Payton and really what Nick Haley does as well in Houston, very similar scheme. So that's where you would see him succeed. Where Love, you can plug and play almost anywhere, give him some decent offensive line help, and you're off and running. But here, Price needs a good system. So you're automatically down to system backs or backs that have some limitations. I mean, Jeremiyah Love just doesn't have any overall. And you get into that. So it's more about the fits than for fantasy success than the actual talent.
Yeah, I'm going to be really watching closely to him and seeing how teams evaluate him as well as his backup guy. Do they see him kind of like a Josh Jacobs type of guy where he had to share the backfield in Alabama, but still went really early in drafts because they trusted his talent and they thought he could be a full-time running back in the league. So keeping an eye on reports about him. Now, Nebraska Emmett Johnson is another running back that we'll be watching. He's predicted to run in the low 4.4s if he does run his 40-yard dash, ranked as a top 3 running back in many expert rankings. He had a fantastic year as a redshirt junior, but it was his first big year in his college career. Over 1,800 scrimmage yards. He had 15 touchdowns. He is on the smaller side. He's listed at 5'11", 200 pounds, and that's when they're listed, they normally try to be a little bit nicer to you at college. So he could even be less than 200 pounds. So I definitely will be looking out for his weight at the combine to see if he can hit over that 200. If he doesn't, it doesn't mean it's over. Like we've seen a lot of smaller guys be successful in the NFL lately. But I would still feel more comfortable if he could at least hit that 200-pound mark.
Yeah, that's important. And don't forget, I mean, I know you have a team like the Browns that found Quinshon Judkins and then they used a extra draft pick on Dylan Simpson, but sometimes things break down and you have a new coach and he wants to blow things up and goes his own ways. So I think you cannot forget about those teams that change coaches. I think the Giants, would ideally stick with their Cam Scadaboo and Tyron Tracy thing, but everyone's going to be exploring the running backs. If Johnson can bring a special element there, especially with the speed, I think a lot of teams would be interested. So again, it's really breaking that down. We also have the Patriots. Look, I don't know how it's going to break down between Ramondre Stevenson and Trayvon Henderson, but they could always bring in another speed guy into the mix. So there's a lot of backfields you're hoping that don't add running backs just because they like a guy in particular. But I think Emmett Johnson is a guy that you can put in special packages with the speed to add a little home run element to your team. So again, the only guy that I can really say right now without a landing spot that I'm going to draft 100%, no matter where he is Jeremiyah Love. Everybody else is wait and see, get in a good situation, because that's really what it comes down to with your fantasy backs. Like, we don't know who's going to be the next guy who can at least give us value in the rookie season. But then you have, of course, the whole thing with like the Damian Pierce and Philip Lindsay and James Robinson types, right? That can be good for 1 year in the right system, but fade. So you cannot sleep on those guys either.
Now, the wide receiver class looks to be a lot more exciting than the running back class this year. Daniel Jeremiah in his latest mock drafts has 6 wide receivers going in the first round in his latest draft. So we're going to get to have eyes on those guys at the combine this weekend. Outside of one of them who we know is not testing, which is kind of sad, but hopefully the rest will. We will get to that right after a quick break. As the new year gets going, a lot of people are trying to simplify their routines, and dinner is a big one. Between busy work days, cold winter nights, and packed schedules, having an easy, reliable dinner plan makes a huge difference. That's where Home Chef comes in. Home Chef takes the stress out of cooking by delivering fresh, pre-portioned ingredients right to your door with easy to follow recipes that actually taste great. They're rated #1 by users of other meal kits for quality, convenience, value, taste, and recipe ease. And it's easy to see why. Their meals come ready to fit your schedule. There's 30-minute recipes or oven-ready trays or even quick lunches. There are over 30 weekly options, including family-sized meals and different dietary choices. And it actually saves you time and money. Home Chef customers save an average of $86 per month on groceries. For a limited time, Home Chef is offering our listeners 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Just go to homechef.com/locked-on. That's Homechef, HOMECHEF.com/locked-on for 50% off your first box, free shipping, and free dessert for life. Must be an active subscriber to receive the free dessert. All right, let's get into the wide receivers we're going to be paying most attention to during the combine, especially on Saturday when they start testing. Now, we did get news that one of the top prospects in Jordyn Tyson from ASU, he's not going to be doing drills, workouts. He is an expected middle round, first round pick. So that's unfortunate that we won't get to see him, but a lot of other guys to keep an eye on. And we gotta start with Carnell Tate, who could be a top 5 overall pick this year. 6'3", 195 pounds. Unofficially, we'll see what he weighs in at the combine, but he is the all-around prospect. Do you think he can solidify himself as a top 5 prospect this weekend?
Yeah, I mean, he has been overshadowed, we know, because Jeremiah Smith has been there. And Ohio State factory of wide receivers. I mean, you always have to figure out where does he fit in with all those guys. And we've seen Jackson Smith-Njigba reach the top of the league this year. We had Garrett Wilson flash that as a rookie. We've seen Chris Olave do some damage at that level. Emeka Egbuka coming out last year. So this pipeline of Ohio State receivers, I mean, except for the one that everyone thought was not going to miss, Marvin Harrison Jr., they've been on fire here producing in the NFL. So Carnell Tate kind of evolved. Like, I think he was just, he's the other guy. He can make big plays too, but he had all the opportunity to stand out here with Julian Sane and didn't mess it up. And I just like that he's a good big body. I thought at 6'3", 195, if the Cowboys wanted to pivot off George Pickens, they could easily go in this direction. But they're obviously going to keep Pickens, so that puts Tate in play for a lot of teams. The Commanders could use another big play guy there for Jaden Daniels to help Terry McLaurin. You look at the Ravens, they're always seeming to be in the mix for a receiver. The Chiefs are always seeming to be in the mix for a receiver. You look at the Bills, I don't think he's going to last anywhere close to that. So, again, the Browns also being an Ohio State guy, they have no receivers at this point except for Jerry Jeudy. So, they need help as well. So, really, any of these teams that need a wide receiver, we mentioned the Jets, the 49ers, these teams as well. The Jets are desperate need of that big play guy opposite Wilson, 2 Ohio State guys who make a lot of sense. The 49ers would definitely jump on him or somebody else if he were to slip down to their spot a little later in the first round. But Tate, to me, look, just run well, show some good routes, be consistent with your hands in the catching drills. Then I'll feel really good about him. But right now, I think Jordyn Tyson is the best complete receiver in this draft. So if he didn't have to work out, that's fine. Even if he was hurt a little bit and was staying out, that's also good for him. He doesn't need to prove himself. But Tate really could get there and make sure he's the number 2 guy off the board.
Yeah, right now, Tate is being projected to the Giants and Daniel Jeremiah's latest mock draft. That would be interesting fit with Neighbors and Tate then. That gets us really excited about Jackson Dart if that was a chance. But, I mean, the Titans have a desperate need for a top-tier wide receiver. They pick 4th. You already brought up the Jets. You picked number 2. You brought up the Browns. You picked number 6. The Commanders at number 7. The Saints at 8. The Chiefs at 9. All of these teams could easily be looking for a wide receiver. So guys like Tate or Mekhi Lemon or like you brought up, like Tyson. All of these guys could be options at these spots. Now, I don't know if Tyson hurts his draft stock a little bit by not participating, especially if Lemon and Tate have good combine performances, but those are things we'll be looking out for. And with Lemon, like, he had one big season, right? It came in his junior year at USC. His career started a little bit slower. Are you a little bit worried that it was just a one hit type of year, or do you think he'll be able to be a very good prospect coming into the NFL?
Yeah, I think you have to also find the right spot for him. I think he has to be more of a slot receiver first and settling that way. He can play on the outside as well, but he's more of the speed quickness guy. So he's going to get routes and hands are going to be big for a lot of these guys. How crisp they are, those drills, the gauntlets, and really just saying, hey, we're going to stick every catch that's here, every opportunity, short to intermediate routes that are going to happen as well. Because not everybody's going to line up outside and stretch the field. You still have to get open in traffic to get those first downs and move the chains on third down. So I really think Lemon could be one of those guys. He's a tough receiver there as well, and really had a lot of good volume at USC. So again, those the basic little fundamentals. These things can separate one receiver from the other in the combine very easily.
One guy I'm really, really excited to keep an eye on this weekend is Concepción out of Texas A&M. He is predicted to run in the 4.3s. If he does that, I think it could definitely up his draft stock, get him more regularly being mocked in that first round and the later first round. But lots of teams need speed right now. You brought up the 49ers. They said they want to add speed. So that could be an option later in the first round if he has a good combine. He isn't too big. He's 5'11", 190, but that's not too small either. Like it's okay. We got to see what he measures out at the combine. Make sure he doesn't drop too much weight there when it goes from the college listing to what he actually is. But he has made some really, really impressive plays in college. So I will be keeping a close eye on him come this weekend.
Yeah, I'm looking at this group here. I do like Concepción a lot. I have him right now, maybe looking at the Steelers, 49ers, good playmaker, like we talked about, possibility of Jalen Waddle. I think I'd rather just draft Casey Concepción if I'm the Steelers and get that young, dynamic guy versus a fading dude that gives you a little bit more speed and quickness and that big playability. Everyone wants the open field people, right? Jackson Smith-Njigba. He was big. I mean, we just are going to chase the teams that are on top, right? We want those big play technical guys that can get open everywhere on the field. Now, two guys we're going to look in the same vein are Deion Burks and Zachariah and Branch out of Georgia. These guys have been rising. I'm going to pay attention to them. I mean, these very similar. I call them like diminutive dashers, slot guys that you can get into the open field, do some damage after the catch. Those guys can be really special. And look, the best example before he got hurt was Tank Dell. Get somebody who can move around, make some big plays happen. And we're not too worried about the size, because if you look recently, yeah, you've had your Mike Evans and Devontae Adams as veteran guys who are going to be the Hall of Fame. But if you look recently, it's those 5'10", 5'11", dudes that are really doing well. Jackson's been the Jigba right at 6 foot. So you don't need to have a big receiver, but you can be quick, get open, get everywhere on the field. The versatility of these three guys really helps as well.
Now, a couple other guys that have been projected in the first round, Malachi Fields and Denzel Boston, definitely different than that last group we talked about. They're much, much bigger. Fields at 6'4", 223. We'll see his official height and weight here this week. And then Boston is listed at 6'4", 209. I will say with Fields, it's a little concerning. He didn't do more with that height and weight in college because he was playing against much smaller guys. You'd think he would have dominated a bit more. 5 years in school, 4 years at Virginia, 1 year at Notre Dame. No numbers are really like striking. 5 receiving touchdowns in each of the last 3 years. But, it's not like he was on these offenses that were awesome in the passing game. So maybe we can give him the benefit of the doubt there. And then with Boston, he had 2 nice years, the last few years at Washington, 11 touchdowns this past year, 881 yards in 12 games. But we have to see how they run, because that's going to be a question, right? Are they on the slower side? Are they too slow to be able to produce in the NFL. But if they can just run in the 4.5s, I think they will establish themselves as not a worry about their speed at that size.
Yeah, you could look at Mike Evans' comparison, and the Buccaneers might be in the market for a type of receiver, even after taking Ibuka in the first round last year, because Evans could walk. They are still a mess at receiver if you look beyond that. So maybe Atlanta comes into play as well. I think it's a little too rich right now with what they need, but still Boston can be in play because they just need that reliable number 2 or that third target to go with Drake London and Kyle Pitts. So another team you can look at. I've talked about the Eagles a little bit. If they get that third receiver and move on from Dallas Goedert, they do have a new coordinator, Sean Mannion, run more 11 personnel, maybe get Devonta Smith or even A.J. Brown, pivot them a slot and have them, and then you can move around this other receiver on the outside. So that's something you can look at also in Philadelphia. So really early, you have one type of receiver. Late, you have another type of receiver, but that's why Daniel Jeremiah has so many mock there that I also like a lot of positions to be filled here in those particular wide receiver needy teams. So again, it's just a matter of who you prefer, right? And right now, I prefer Boston over Fields. I prefer Concepción over Burks and Branch. And I think we'll have to see. I mean, the Combine could flip those philosophies on its head here. So when we look at that, I just say, hey, there's a lot of talent on this board, and a lot of teams are going to be happy, and we're going to have to really evaluate these rookie wide receivers hard for our fantasy teams, not just for Dynasty, but for immediate impact here in redraft leagues.
Let's finish up today's episode talking about the top quarterback to watch for the Combine and the top tight end. Now, Fernando Mendoza will not throw at the Combine this week. He'll throw at Indiana's Pro Day on April 1st, so we won't get to see him. That means Ty Simpson steps up as the top guy we're watching here at the Combine, and this is insanely important for him because right now he's considered possibly, sneaking into this first round. There's a lot of quarterback-needy teams. We will talk about him and Kenyon Sadiq at tight end to close out today's show.
It's an exciting time of year in the NBA. We're working toward the playoffs. And if you ever wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person, FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Just use your profit boost on the any NBA future. You'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for 2. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole experience. If you're already looking at the board, think about which team can make a deep run. This is a perfect time to lock it in and a good chance to go with the sleeper team. I love futures of this time of year. We're past the All-Star break. We're seeing who's going to make the run. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander right now hurt for the Thunder, so that could open things up. So you can pick a team that you're looking at to get to the championship, win it, or grab a conference title. It adds that extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. Here, visit FanDuel.com to get started and use our profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Michelle, the quarterback class without Fernando Mendoza working out is bad. We'll say this. This is reminding me a lot of that Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis class where we try to inflate somebody into the first round. Well, you'll have one first rounder in Fernando Mendoza. You'll have the first overall pick. But after that, it's a big drop off. The next guy, consensus, is Ty Simpson. Now, on most boards, whether it's mine or Daniel Jeremiah's, you'll find him in the 30s, right? The early 30s. So that says a back end, a first round pick at best. Some people are even lower on Ty Simpson than that. He's from Alabama. He's got to have a big week to knock it out of the park because there's some guys behind him have some momentum. Garrett Nussmeier is just around. He's got it. NFL pedigree there with his last name. He's a pretty good quarterback prospect. There's just not a lot here. So Ty Simpson, look, I don't know if he's a first-round QB. I need to see a lot more. I'm a little bit underwhelmed in some of the games I've seen him in college. He's a good short area accurate passer. Now, this is not going to excite a lot of people, but I see some Bo Nix in him. That he has some experience, can get the short to intermediate ball out. So if you surround him in a decent place with a decent system, he can produce. But unfortunately, you have the Browns potentially there. That's not a place you feel comfortable with. Pittsburgh, I don't think you want to see him there, especially if Aaron Rodgers is back. Why would you do that? You don't need to force a first-round pick on this. So I don't know. Like, I'm running out of teams in the end. I mean, the Jets would have to take a flyer, and I don't think I would do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's unfortunate, right? Because you bring up Bo Nix, you're like, okay, you could see how he could succeed if he ends up in a good offense. Like, we only got to see him for 1 year. I mean, this last year at Alabama was his first time as a starter. It was a solid year, but it's not like he has any of these elite skill set that you're super excited about him coming out of school. He's also on the smaller side at 6'2", 208 pounds. Not like incredibly mobile where you're like, you can just lean on that. So, and if he's going to go in the later first round, it is probably, I mean, the Browns have the 24th overall pick from the Jaguars. Like, there's a really good chance he lands there. And that's unfortunate. That's not going to Sean Payton and that Broncos offense, right? Or like you brought up the Jets, who have 2 first-round picks. You wouldn't, like, they're not going to take them at number 2, but they have the number 16 overall pick from the Colts. Maybe that's an option. Maybe his best way to go could be the Rams, who have 2 first-round picks as well. Maybe the Rams take him at 29 with Stafford, planning. You wouldn't expect him to be there all too much longer. He gets to learn behind Stafford. He gets to be in Sean McVay's system. And I mean, Stafford has had his many injuries, right, where he can miss some games. So maybe they want that backup option there as well. So that would probably be the best landing spot for him. But then unfortunately, when it comes to fantasy for this year, you wouldn't be like thinking about drafting him with Stafford there. And then if he lands with Cleveland or the Jets, we wouldn't want that either. But excited to see him throw, excited to see what he can do. Hopefully he can shine here this weekend. Now, moving to tight end, the top guy in this class, Kenyon Sadiq. I will say, like, he probably will have a fantastic combine, right? He's super athletic, and he's on the small side. He's only listed at 6'3", and again, normally schools list you to make you look better. So is he shorter than that? We have to see that. That's something I'm going to keep an eye on at the combine. He is only 20 years old, so super young prospect with a lot of promise. It's just, is he too small to be this, like, a top 5 tight end in the league?
Yeah, that's the one thing we're going to look at, his size, the way in, how he checks out and all the measurables this week. And the seeing how crisp he is he worth that first-round pick? Right now, I think he's a borderline first-round pick, probably in the back half of the first round. It's hard to also justify for some teams taking a tight end that early. I mean, we've seen it as a little bit of a luxury pick when it came to Kyle Pitts and Dalton Kincaid, but then it became a massive pick when you had Brock Bowers and Tyler Ward and Colston Loveland. So where does he fall? Probably somewhere in the mix of all that, right? Not surefire. Okay, he's not can't miss, but he's also not just a throwaway guy that you would get in the first round. I think he could be very successful. But you're right, the size has to pan out. Now, there's some good depth here, I'll say, at this position. We look at Max Clare of Ohio State. He was overshadowed by those wide receivers as well, but he's a very good player. Like, he can stretch the field. He's pretty good in line. I like him. Eli Stowers, there's some little bit of, I guess, polarization, just like his quarterback, Diego Pavia, there. When you look at him coming out of Vanderbilt, is he a guy that you would rely upon? So, and then you have Justin Jolly is a guy I like out of NC State who's got some athleticism and can make plays. So this tight end class is not, I was not going to say, hey, it's that Loveland Warren feeling, but there's some guys, if you get them in the right spots, could be successful. But to me, the guys I would watch for sure are Sadiq and Claire, and then anyone else, they have to land the right spots. But if I'm going to look at someone that would have fantasy value in the near future, I think it would be Claire and Sadiq.
Yeah, and Sadiq, if he can solidify himself as a first-round pick, there's some interesting landing spots late in the 20s with, like, the Eagles without Dallas Goedert. If he moves on in free agency, New England with Hunter Henry aging and they could use more weapons. Denver, the Evan Ingram signing was pointless, right? Houston if they wanted an upgrade to Dalton Schultz. But some good landing spots he can have here. Even the 49ers, if they wanted to go that route, I would hate it as a 49ers fan taking a tight end. But with George Kittle getting older, tearing his Achilles, maybe they want to look elsewhere as well. But those are all the things we will be watching this weekend. Again, that's Saturday where we get to see the quarterbacks, running backs, and wide receivers workout, and then Friday for the tight ends over at NFL Network. I want to thank you all for tuning in. We will be back tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Fantasy Football so you get all the latest episodes. And if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Fantasy Football ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more for just $5 a month. Head to lockedonfantasyfootball.supercast.com or check the link in the show notes to join the club. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye, y'all.